Today, going to demonstrate, show this standard workbench. I've built two of these. I'm going to build another one, and the beauty of these is they're very sturdy, they're simple to build, quick to build, and you can clamp them together. They were originally designed for building airplanes. So you clamp three of them together and build a whole airplane wing on there. It's got, the top is 3/4 inch plywood. They're 33 and a half inches high. They have a nice shelf on the bottom, and you can modify them in many different ways. I actually already modified the original design. Had the top flush. I ran it out an inch here so that you can clamp stuff to your workbench when you're working on it. So, you know, I also have another one that I put a back on with a shelf, kind of like this gardening bench over here. I just put a back on it and ran it up to a shelf. So I have another one out in the garage, and that one was based on this. So 5 feet long, 2 feet wide. Very handy. I love this bench, and going to build another one. Show you how easy it is. It's built with 2x4s and 3/4 plywood. Uses one standard piece of 3/4 plywood exterior, 12 2x4 8-foot studs. Now I had a bunch of 2x4s left over from another project, so I just used those. It says the plans called for a 16-ounce bottle of wood glue. I used maybe 3/4 of a 8-ounce bottle. You know, as much glue as you want to use, right? You can conserve it. A box of 3-inch number 10 construction screws. I use the star drive. They seem to work better. The star drives usually come right in the box, so you don't have to buy a special one. And I got a box of 50 number 8 2.5 inch screws. You want to have a good square and a good saw. Now this saw, this circular saw, I used it to build the first one. Since I built that first one, I got a Harbor Freight table saw, and I built a sled for it. The sled was, I think, Izzy Swan on YouTube, and I built that sled because then you can cut all these studs very quickly for the legs and the tabletop very quickly, and they all come out really square. So that's why I like that the table saw sled. You don't have to use it. It's just easier to get everything square with a table saw than it is with a skill saw. But if all you have is a skill saw, it's certainly easy enough to build this table without a skill saw. Although even on my the last one I built, I used the skill saw to get these very long cuts out of a 4x8 piece of plywood, which is, here's the next tabletop right up there, an old piece of 3/4 plywood. It actually used to be a floor. It's flooring, and I found it's easier just to clamp a straight edge down on the 2x4, or I mean on the plywood 4x8, and run the skill saw right along that edge. So I've already, I had a long 2x4 stud. I've already cut out the 60-inch 5-foot table supports right here. So I cut 2 of those out. You build the tabletop support kind of like a ladder. So got these 2 supports. Then I'm going to need 5 21-inch cross members on 15-inch centers. So I'm going to mark one off and then use it as the master to make all the others. So they're all exactly the same size. So there's 21 inches exactly. Now once I get the master done, I'll do all the rest of them. And, there's 5 of those, and actually you can make 7 because you have the cross pieces on the for the support. There's 2 cross pieces for the support for the shelf. And but I'm going to wait on those because depending on the thickness of the legs, and they can come out 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch off. So I'm just going to wait and do those when I'm doing the shelf support. So I've got my sled, my Izzy Swan sled set up, and you look at those all the videos of like the guys that do a lot of woodworking. They use sleds because it gets everything square. It's quick and easy. And there's a lot you can do with a table saw sled. And I didn't ever use one until recently, and I watched a couple videos. Izzy Swan, and the other one was. I think it's Mathis Waddell. I think he's up in Canada. He built some great stuff. He has, I think, 4 different sleds he uses for various projects. But this is great. Well, that looks pretty good. See that? That's pretty darn square. That's good. I like that. Alright, I'm happy with that. I think the other end already did. Came from the same piece. So that's a testament for your table saw sled. And, I built it myself, so it's not perfect. But, I love it. A scrap piece here. This will make some whirligig blades or hubs or whatever. I'm gonna cut the end off this so make sure it's square. Get the camera resting on the end of the ladder. The ladder is my table saw. I don't know, extension, table saw bench extension, which I don't have, but the ladder works fine. I've just got a piece of wood under it, so it's flush with the top of the sled. So the first thing is I'm going to cut the end off. It's got some damage to the end, and these were used, so there's some nails, so I'm going to cut the part with the nail off. Clean it up a little bit. And then I'm going to use a clamp to make sure it's tight against here. And because when I'm sliding it, it's such a big piece. This is an argument for instead of using 16-foot pieces, to use the 8-foot pieces, because these are so awkward to deal with. And it's easier just to transport, to handle an 8-foot piece than it is a 16. I think this is a 16-foot piece. These were studs in a house remodel project. If you mark these all, you're like, oh, I'm just going to mark them all. Zing, zing, zing. Mark 5 of them out. Well, you don't take into account the kerf for your blade. So then each one of them is going to be a little different because of your kerf. So I mark each one out individually and cut them, one by one. And first I use the original, or the master, whatever you want to call it. And then I want them all to be the same, even if this is a little, tiny bit off, too big, they'll all be the same. And that's the goal. It's really handy having the table right here. I'm using the table to build the table, so I can see and compare the sizes and stuff to make sure I'm not way out of bounds. So let's see how we did here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at that. Perfect. All right. That's the cross part. And I think the only thing to do now is to go ahead and I could assemble that, or I could cut out my piece for the top. Maybe I should do that first and then assemble these on top of the top, or on the bottom of the top, and make sure it all squares up and lines up. All right, I've got two pieces that aren't buried under there, and I'm choosing. This one has a lot of these broken off nails where it was taken off the floor, but the surface is a lot cleaner, and it's plenty big. I only need 24 inches by 60. So it's plenty big. This one's got less nail holes in it, but it's got a lot of paint splatters. Boy, that's a hard, who cares about the paint? But I don't want to have to cut through these nails, so I'm kind of torn. Sure looks messy. The back side, the back side is the rough side, so pretty stuck on this side. 20. All right. Now this is where I'm going to use the skill saw. Alright, so now I'm going to use the skill saw, get a square edge on here, 24 by 60. What I'm going to do now is get one edge square. This was ripped out of a floor with just like a Sawzall and a skill saw, and so one edge is all, these two edges are, they're not square or even or anything. So I got to get one edge square. Now this back square is tongue and groove, so this is still intact from the factory cut, so that's pretty square. So I can use that as my reference and then cut across here. And what I'm going to do is I have this is a piece of shelving rack, and it's pretty straight. So I'll clamp it down and use it as a guide against my skill saw edge. Just go right along there and get a nice square edge on that. And I realized that if I clamp it, the saw is going to hit that. So I just got some little drywall screws, and I'm going to, luckily this track has holes every 18 inches or so, and I'm just going to tack it down with the screws. If you have a piece of sheathing or a piece of wood that has a good edge on it and it's straight, you can do the same thing. So now recheck the squareness with the carpenter square. You know, this is going to be the tabletop, so you want it to look fairly decent. And depending on what you're going to use your table for, you could just snap a line with the string, the dust string. Snap a line, eyeball it. So you know, it's your own level of what you want to do, and you know where your table's going to be used. As to how precise you want to make it. Just trying to make it look neat. That looks pretty good. So if it comes out all wacky, I'll just shave off a little bit more. Another thing, you want to make sure your table saws, your skill saw is set up 90 to its table. There's an adjustment on that so that your edges are square. And you want to make sure you have plenty of string. You don't want to get halfway through your cut and have the cord come unplugged or get caught on something, and then it gets caught and your saw goes ring as you're going along. So make sure you have plenty of free wire. Alright, that was easy. Check it. Not too bad. This was done, this is rough, this edge, so I'm going to use this edge and get this edge square now. It's not perfect. Using this edge now that I've created square to that side, I'm going to use this edge to square it up. I'm just going to cut off a 1/2 inch and square this up. Goggles, contact. Pretty good. I got a little bump here somehow. I'm gonna use this side. So. Measure twice. My guide and one side is straighter than the other. this one.